Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the host of the program. And this is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, many home sellers fear the inspection. Many people think that most buyers want to purchase their home as is. Not always true. What are some of the red flags that home sellers need to prepare for when they're selling their home?
Well, it is this perception that, they want to buy my house just as is, just like it is. And if the home doesn't need any work, yeah, that'd be great. But you know what? The inspector comes along, and the problem is the inspectors, are not regulated in the state of Colorado. There is no license to be an inspector. I could be an inspector, and I'm scary with the tool in my hands. There's no criteria for this job. Most of them get an online certification, right? But they come in and they judge the systems of your home, sometimes without knowing the systems of your home. And there's, 33 plus systems that come under scrutiny. The buyers really want a move-in ready house. That's why still to this day, new construction competes, even though sometimes you're getting less square footage when you buy a new house. Many times you have to put money into it, like landscaping and fencing and window coverings. But buyers would rather do that than deal with an older house that needs a new water heater, a new this and new that. So sellers should fear that. And many times it's not very obvious. I just closed a home where it was beautiful inside. It had been completely remodeled. It looked adorable. He knew about a few flaws here and there. It was about a 25-year-old home. His competition definitely was new construction around the area. And on the inspection, they found all kinds of stuff that were really kind of a big surprise. They found a few Mickey Mouse plumbing, which I honestly think the inspector caused. So this is an example. Inspectors will come in, and the first thing they're going to do is go to every single faucet, every single sink, every single tub in the house and turn it on and run it for about 2 hours, the whole time that they're there. How would you like that, Richard?
I would be, you know what? I'd be upset, but I'd also be thinking that that's exactly why I want Barb Schlinker representing me.
So what they do is they test the whether or not these systems are going to be leaking if they run the water for a long period of time. Well, sometimes they come up over the spillway hole and then they leak down into the cabinet and then they're like, "Oh, you got a plumbing leak you got to take care of." So I would say 2 out of 3 inspections, they'll come back and say, "Oh, well, there's a plumbing leak under the sink," and the seller cannot duplicate it because it was created by the inspection. The other thing that comes up an awful lot are building code issues. So building codes change constantly, just like lending guidelines. They're always changing. And so many times the inspectors will try to impose today's building code on an older home. And the truth is, an older home should be grandfathered in for when it was built. An example would be they'll come in and go, "Oh, if your carbon monoxide detectors and your smoke detectors are more than 10 years old, you got to replace it." Well, no, there's no rule about that. They just make that kind of thing up. I guess it's okay to update them, but if they're still working, why would you do it? Same thing with water heaters. They will sit there and say, well, the average useful life of a water heater is 6 to 12 years. So now that this water heater is 13 years old, it's beyond its useful life and you should replace it. So the buyers are like, "Oh, okay, I guess we need a new water heater. We're going to have to ask the seller to replace the water heater. Otherwise, we're walking away just because it's old." Well, one of my agents said when I told her the story, she goes, "Well, if people get old, they don't kill you, right? I mean, why do we have to do that if it's working?" Same thing with electrical systems. There are some electrical systems like the Federal Pacific panels that have a very, very bad reputation online. However, some of those are fine and some of those are not fine. So it's really a good idea to be prepared for this inspection because there's a lot of systems that if they don't appear to be broken, the sellers don't do anything about it. Um, and then they find out on the inspection, and now you're kind of under the gun from contract to closing. You maybe only have a week to decide whether or not you're going to get bids and repairs. I've got one that's closing next week that the buyer wanted the cracked driveway to be replaced. So they had to get a bid from several people. And one of the persons said, well, it would cost more to repair than it would to replace. So we worked that out, but I'm just saying, you want to know in advance. Some of the really big ticket items you have to worry about include like furnace, especially if it's more than 25 years old, water heater if it's more than 10 years old, electrical panel, the age doesn't so much matter, but if it's that Federal Pacific brand, it will require, probably the buyer is going to ask for replacement. Sewer and septic things. So sewer lines started coming under scrutiny back in 2018. I started noticing it on our inspections when all of a sudden these Joe, Billy, Bob inspectors would come in and they'd start running a sewer scope through a toilet, through a tub. Obviously, they didn't know what they were doing. They were scratching these appliances and fixtures. And then they went so far as if they couldn't find the sewer cleanout in the house, they were removing the toilet without permission and running the sewer scope through the toilet. And that's when I had to put my foot down and go, wait a minute, they're not supposed to be tearing apart the house. What does Joe, Billy, Bob inspector know about pulling and reseating toilets properly? So I had to create my own inspection policy. It's a written document. And it's coupled with a video because when I send it to agents, they really don't want to read. But, I do a video about why am I doing this? If they want to pull a toilet, if they want to check out the sewer line, that's fine. The buyer, it's on the buyer to pay for their inspections. They're going to have to bring in a licensed plumber who knows how to pull it and knows how to properly reseat it so there is no leak. Septic systems could be monster expensive, probably more than any other system. And it depends on what county you're in. I know El Paso and Douglas and a few other counties along the Front Range mandate that your septic system has to be inspected prior to selling the property. What the counties are looking for is whether or not there is any groundwater contamination into the area. So sometimes these septic guys will come out and they'll test the system and go, oh, your leach field failed. Well, that could be really expensive, especially if you have to put in an engineered system. So what happens from there is you have to go bring in an engineer, do a soils test. The engineer has to create the system based on the soils test. All those things take time. There's no way you're going to close from contract to closing on time if you have to replace a system like that. Then you got to pull a permit. That could take time. And I had one last year that when we met, I said, check out the system because it was an older system. They started the process right away. And we got a contract. We went on the market a month later. We got a contract right away. And it still took over 2 months to get that system repaired. And we were able to close after that. So those are critical systems that you should look at. The county typically doesn't require the septic system to be pumped unless the tank is more than 30% full. So if you've just done it, it's fine. But many times the systems are okay, but you want to know that in advance because it takes a long time and it's very expensive to do that repair. You can, of course, have it funded out of your net proceeds at closing. Another thing that inspectors hit all the time are the GFCI electrical outlets, the ones that pop, if a circuit gets overloaded. They will require these days for new construction, you have to have them everywhere in the house where there's water, even in the barns and the outbuildings. But that wasn't required when the house was built. So it's for me, I have a solution for helping sellers ahead of this to make sure that they don't have a problem. And then the roof is probably the most common thing that we see repair demands on. I would say probably anywhere from 2 out of 4 of my listings have to get a new roof because hail is so prevalent all up and down the Front Range. And it comes up so often that I would recommend that anytime after a hailstorm, even if your roof is not leaking, I would have a roofer come out and check it out. Now, I know there's kind of a conflict of interest there because the roofer wants to sell roofs, right? But we know some real trusty vendors that are going to tell you if it needs to be replaced, and they're going to tell you if it doesn't. And that's what you need to know. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of the show, Your Real Estate Voice. And we're talking about ways to avoid contract failures for inspections when you're selling a house. And next up, we're going to talk about the best solution that you should know to pass your inspection when you go on the market. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you're interested in selling your home, you want to call Barb, give her a call at 719-301-3900. And we're talking, Barb, about how to avoid red flags on the home inspection for sellers. Barb, what are some other home inspection issues that you've seen come up?
In general, I know a lot of times if your outside paint is peeling and your buyer is getting a government loan like VA or FHA, the appraiser is going to require that to be repaired. So I definitely would get ahead of that. Also, if there's any safety trip hazards, broken windows, wells is another thing that I see. If you have a well at the house and the buyer's getting a VA loan, they will do a bacteria and a metals test. You need a lot of advance notice for that, but the buyer should be paying for that inspection. And then there's always surprises. I mean, these inspectors come up with these crazy gadgets. You know, I had one at this one inspection where this guy walked through with his mold wand. I've got a mold wand doing air samples. And I'm like, what is that? Is that real or is that fake? I didn't know. I had one buyer at an inspection decided to make it a party. The agent was there, and I get this panicky call from the seller going, "What is going on?" I'm like, "Well, I told you there's an inspection going on." He goes, "Yeah, but why is pizza being delivered at my house?" And it wasn't just one pizza, it was three pizzas and a bag of wings. It was like, wow, are they staying forever? Are they using our utensils? Utensils? What is going on? So I called the agent. She goes, "Well, the buyers." I said, why is there pizza being delivered? "Oh, the buyers were hungry." And I said, "Yeah, but they can't like go eat somewhere else or eat in their car. I mean, really?" She goes, okay. But anyway, there's no rules for real estate, unfortunately, other than the license law stuff, as far as what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. Every agent kind of creates their own job description. So you see some crazy stuff. You see agents trying to ditch attending inspections for their buyers. And that's a problem because with an unlicensed inspector, we don't want that person in there unescorted because there's a law about that. Or I've also seen inspectors ask the seller to leave their own home during the inspection. No, no, they can't do that. Thank you for asking. And, they'll ask, "Well, why do you want me to leave?" "Oh, it's because, we want to talk about the home, but not in front of you." It's like, well, you can leave and go do that yourself. So we protect our clients from these kind of crazy problems. And one of the best things that you can do is plan ahead. Get ahead of these systems. Meet with us. We'd love to sit down and give you tips on what to do, what not to do to get your house ready for sale and how to prepare for those contingencies. We also offer systems where you can get a pre-inspection and be fully prepared. So when we offer the home for sale, all that's done and behind you. All you need to do is give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you are thinking of making a move, simply call Barb at 719-301-3900. Or, of course, you can always visit barbhasthebuyers.com. She's the host of the program. And when we come back, she'll be talking about how to fix your credit before buying a house, plus Barb's hot new listings. You don't want to miss any of that.